Oh, punishment! What a wonderful idea! And a really old one at that too, as it presumably dates back to the very concepts of culture and laws. The idea is so simple yet complex, that it goes from punishing a child for breaking a couple of plates to killing a tiger because it just so happened to eat your firstborn. But punishing fairly is hard, because if centuries of slaughter and brutality has taught us something, is that the punishment itself must fit the crime. So long gone are the days of cutting people's hands off for a loaf of bread. In fiction, this is contemplated as poetic justice. Leave it out and give your genocidal bad guy a happy ending, and people will feel there's something wrong with you.
There is something wrong with you. You waste doctor's time.
Well, maybe I make the doctor waste her time. I beg your pardon, Edgar.
Sorry, mister. He just doesn't like it when the inmates talk too much.
Oh, come on, think about it. We could have so much fun and laughs discussing this type of material.
Yes, doctor makes her duty, and you waste her time. Hilarious.
Oh, and one would think you'd be more amiable after cutting me off mid-sentence when I was theorising about the ant bully.
Just be quiet. Almost there.
Don't worry, mister. You'll never be a waste of time in my eyes.
So, tell me, what do you think of the B-movie?
Okay, we make deal. You can talk as much as you want while elevator comes up. But when doors open, your mouth must shut. Understand?
Oh, okay, but...
Understand?
Yes? Yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, black. Oh, B-movie, let's shake it up a little. Oh, B-movie is the story of Barry B. Benson, a bee on a quest to sue the human race for exploiting bee kind and save a poor girl named Vanessa from the clutches of her dumb, rude boyfriend, Ken. But Ken's not a bad guy. Dare I say, he's not even a terrible boyfriend. But don't get me wrong, he's far from perfect. He's quite dumb and egotistical, but he never does anything outside of any legal or even moral boundaries. He provides economically, is passionate about his career, he supports Vanessa not only financially but also in the pursuit of her dreams. He clearly has strong feelings for her, as he's even willing to keep up with her clearly developing insanity. But how does Vanessa repay all of these considerations towards her, By cheating on him with an insect. The only type of insect that he just so happens to be allergic to, bearing in mind. Granted, he did try to kill Barry in the bathroom scene, but in his defense, nobody knew that insects had a consciousness until a couple of days ago. So it's understandable that some people might have had trouble adjusting. And true, their relationship might not be ideal, but she doesn't even have the decency to at least discuss her problems with him before having a romantic dinner with Barry. And yes, I know not all cheaters are bad people, but no, sorry, it's a horrible indecent act no matter what. Imagine one day you come back late from work and you find your girlfriend, which you've been supporting for some time now, with some guy she barely knows, having a romantic dinner at your expense, and when you confront him, he finds cover behind your girlfriend, making her scream at you, and throw you out of your own apartment so they can proceed to sue your entire species. And don't come with the, oh, they're just good friends argument. They knew what they were doing. The poor guy even starts to break down by the end of the movie, meaning that it's going to take him some time to date, or even trust again. Oh, Mrs. Tweedy was probably one of the few cartoon crushes I ever had as a child. I don't know why. Maybe I have something for strong, temperamental and ambitious women. But anywho, so what's Mrs. Tweedy's biggest crime? She wants to turn her chickens into pies. And yes, that's about it. I mean, look at it from this way. She and her husband manage a chicken farm on the brink of bankruptcy. And seeing that her chickens are not producing enough eggs and are certainly not getting any younger, she decides to invest her money on a profitable new way of business. All while her husband is more than happy in his comfort zone. And yes, she's quite grumpy and all, but if you were managing a failing business and married to an ambitiousless man who thinks chickens are plotting against humans, wouldn't you be cranky too? It's doesn't excuse the abuse towards him still. And yes, some people say by the end of the movie, when she sees that the chickens are escaping and that Mr. Tweedy was right, she goes completely mad. But tell me something. If you saw your only way of livelihood running away, wouldn't you chase after it? And also, if they didn't have much money, then she must have taken some kind of loan to pay for the machine. So with no chickens, there's no product. Without the product, there's no return. And without return, the business can't stay afloat.
But I'm not done yet!
As not only do the chickens escape, but they almost boil her alive and even destroy part of their home, adding more to the losses. If they had financial troubles before, now they surely are bankrupt. Edgar Balthazar has been Madame Bonfamille's butler for God knows how long. Although he's not the smartest, he makes up for it by being kind, patient and loyal. So it's completely reasonable for him to get angry when he hears that his master is going to leave everything to her cats instead of him. True, everyone can do whatever they want with their money, but imagine that decades and decades of not only loyal servitude, but also companionship for a lonely person, and yet they decide their pets are more important than you as a human. Forget about the money, that's just demeaning. And yes, some people say that Edgar could have waited simply for the cats to pass on, or administrate the money to himself. But come on, what if your parents left you out of their will for the sake of pampering the family dog? And it's not like he's evil or anything. I mean, when he decides to get rid of the cats, he doesn't harm them. Even though it would have been easier for him to just poison them or throw them down a well, he instead goes through all the trouble of getting them safely to the countryside. And when they return home, he won't just hack them to pieces and bury them in the garden. He instead tries to ship them off away. He clearly still cares for the cats, but is not willing to take any chances of being left out of the will. He's obviously not vicious by any chance. And while there is an argument that he kind of tried to kill them by the end by locking them in the trunk, well, an animal's life just isn't the same intrinsic value as humans. It is horrible, don't get me wrong, but his crimes are not really out of this world. But that doesn't matter, because in the end, the cats get rid of him by locking him in his own trunk, and look at that! He doesn't even try to move or call for help after he gets kicked by the horse. That's quite possibly because he's internally bleeding and, or at the very least, heavily unconscious due to the high impact and the possible pain of several broken ribs. But don't worry if he didn't die of that right away. The thirst and starvation will get to this elderly butler way before he even gets close to Timbuktu. I mean, a journey of more than 3,000 kilometers for this elderly injured man in the 1910s is a way clearer death sentence. If you really think about it, Hunter is the closest thing Storks has to an unsung hero. I mean, consider this. When Stork still made babies, he was one of the top decision makers in the company. But when one of his colleagues becomes crazy by said babies, and the whole baby business has to be closed down, he doesn't give up. He instead pioneers into uncharted territory and creates a new business model so he and his brethren can thrive in a new economy, possibly creating thousands or even millions of jobs, and also securing the economic stability of all Storks. No wonder why he's so proud and defensive of the company. And yes, while he is a bit rude, he's not a terrible boss. Sure, he tried to destroy a machine that makes babies, but, well, he didn't actually want to kill any of the babies. He simply wanted to destroy the machine. I mean, he knows better than anyone that the babies that they used to make are dangerous. This could even explain as to why he insisted on keeping Tulip on Stork Mountain while she grew up. So maybe in that way she wouldn't make any more people go crazy and they could keep an eye on her. But anyway, by the final act he sees that the machine is overproducing and so logically tries desperately to stop it, to which he fails and gets thrown rather easily into the void. And when you really think about it, his death is a little macabre, in the sense that villains usually just fall to their deaths. You don't usually see them panicking and hyperventilating moments before the inevitable. So yes, what does he get for creating a successful business and taking care of all of the storks and other birds? a frightful death, and the complete indifference of all of his colleagues and friends. Yes, some people might think that the machine from 9 is anything but excusable in its behaviour. Granted, it destroys all life on Earth, and even goes out of its way to destroy the last intelligent beings besides itself. But an aspect that's often overlooked when analysing the movie is that the machine itself, in a way, is free of all fault. Because, well, it's a machine, or an AI in this case. So when you compare it to all the other characters in this list, the machine is the only one that doesn't act completely out of free will or even understanding. So, what technically destroyed the world was not the machine per se, but the ambitions and cruelty of the humans that controlled it. And in classic AI fashion, the machine simply went berserk with its prime directive, not out of malice, but due to faulty logic and induced corruption. So what's particularly tragic about this character, you might say? Well, it's the implications of its creation. Because while some people like to compare it to GLaDOS, the machine itself is actually closer to Frankenstein in a way, in the sense that it's confused about its own existence. The scientist said that the machine came completely out of his intellect and lacked a soul. And it's clear that the machine is aware of this, as it doesn't try to destroy the Stitch punks, but actually absorb them, meaning that it's trying to become a complete being and find its own humanity, as it's clear that the more souls it absorbs, the more human it becomes, and when the factory gets blown up, the machine drags itself to capture 9 and his friends. The logical thing to do would be to rebuild its armies and secure its own existence. But regardless of its own safety, it chooses an ineffective and illogical approach. This would make sense if it's more human by now, as it's acting more based on emotions and impulses rather than on logic. And while the other characters mentioned on this list did have some potential gains in their respective films, what did the machine have to achieve? What if it won? If the machine managed to collect all of the Stitch punks and absorb their souls, what then? It would be a complete being having all the aspects of humanity: intelligence, reason, self-awareness and morality. A being capable of thinking and feeling. A being that would have to come to terms with all of the atrocities it committed in the name of progress. A being that was sealing its own demise without even knowing it. Imagine that. A world completely silent with nothing alive, but a broken, guilt-ridden machine slowly dragging itself across a dead wasteland until it inevitably shuts down or destroys itself. The end.
Talking about shutdown, I think elevator is stuck. Here, hold this for me.
Okie dokie.
So, are there any cartoons you think deserved better?
Well, I never thought of it before.
Why? Don't you like analysing films?
Nope, I don't watch movies.
Oh, all right.
Okay, almost done. So no more stories about childhood or chickens, okay?
Wait a minute. Movie, chickens, childhood? I remember now! I have to tell the doctor about this!
No, wait!
Ah!